Okay, welcome everybody. We're so happy to have you all here. Um, and I'm going to also, let's see, oh, we got some more people in the waiting room. So, hello, I am Heidi Rabinowitz from the Association of Jewish Libraries, and I am the Member Relations Chair. And I'm so happy to have you all here in celebration of
Well,
Jewish Book Month and in celebration of Hanukkah. Um,
earphones?
Hello, somebody talking? I do want to remind everybody to please mute your microphone. So we're so happy to have you all here to celebrate Jewish Book Month and to celebrate Hanukkah. And we have got our wonderful author showcase. We have these author showcases periodically. Authors who are members of the Association of Jewish Libraries, a member benefit for those authors is the eligibility to participate in these author showcases. So we're going to probably go just a little bit over an hour because we have many authors who are really excited to share their books with you. So our co-sponsors today, we actually have co-sponsors. It's not just the Association of Jewish Libraries. We also have Storytime Solidarity and Kidlit in Color as co-sponsors of this event. We're very excited about that. So we've got one of our co-sponsors, Kate Reynolds from Storytime Solidarity is here. And so I'm just going to spotlight her very briefly so that she can say hi and tell you what Storytime Solidarity is.
Okay,
I think I mentioned like 4 times that I was coming.
Let's see, I'm gonna
go sit on the couch.
Okay, I think we're good. Go ahead, Kate.
So, thank you, Heidi. I'm Kate from Storytime Solidarity. On behalf of us and our colleagues at Kidlit in Color, I want to thank you for asking us to join you today. We're really committed at Storytime Solidarity and Kidlit in Color to diversity in children's literature, so every child has both mirrors and windows, and of course Jewish books are a part of that diversity. So thank you for including us and for giving us this opportunity to work with you. We're honored to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. We really love working with Storytime Solidarity, and we're so happy to have you co-hosting.
Thank you.
So I think without further ado, hold on, let me unspotlight. Without further ado, we should ask Sylvie to go ahead and, hold on, there we go. To go ahead and get the ball rolling with our authors tonight. So Sylvie, can you go ahead and tell us what to expect and we'll get started?
Definitely. We are going to be moving pretty quickly tonight. Thank you, Kate, for co-sponsoring. Thank you, Heidi and AJL. Everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight, whether you're presenting or here to get ideas for Hanukkah gifts or to add to your TBR, your to be read list, or just to listen and show support for Jewish Kidlit. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to move fast. Be prepared. I'll be introducing each author, starting tonight with Deborah Lakritz, and I'll also be giving everybody a heads up. So Deborah Lakritz, you are up, and Lisa Weimer, you're on deck. Let me just give you a little bit of a bio, everybody. Deborah Lakritz is the author of Say Hello, Lily, a Sydney Taylor notable book for young readers, as well as the forthcoming middle grade novel, Things That Shimmer. She lives in Wisconsin with her husband, where they raised 5 children. Deborah, thank you so much for kicking things off tonight. We're so glad you're here. What can you tell us about Things That Shimmer?
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Sylvie. Hi, everybody. Tonight I'm going to introduce you to my picture book biography, A Place to Belong. Debbie Friedman Sings Her Way Home, illustrated by Julia Castano and published by Apples and Honey Press. Debbie Friedman's songs are sung the world over. Her Havdalah tune, Misha Bayrak, and Oseh Shalom are known by tremendously diverse Jewish groups. Where did her journey to songwriting begin, and what events led to her discovering that music can create a safe space that welcomes everyone? A Place to Belong begins in the duplex on Baker Avenue in Utica, New York, the city where Debbie was born and where she was surrounded by her large extended family, including her Bubby and Zadie, who lived upstairs. Every Shabbat and holiday, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents gathered together, creating a warm, secure Jewish life for Debbie. That life came to an abrupt end when Debbie's father decided to move their family to St. Paul, Minnesota, when she was barely 5 years old. The void left by the move left Debbie searching for much of her childhood for a place to belong. While we see her in her early experiences in Hebrew school and junior congregation, it plants the seeds for a place of joy and comfort and acceptance. But teenager Debbie finds that moving up to adult services to be a lonely experience, a place where the cantor sings, the choir sings and prays, and the congregation listens. But Debbie has a life-changing experience around a campfire when she's 16 and working as a babysitter at a Jewish sleepaway camp. Her voice rises in song with campers and counselors who are singing popular folk songs about love, peace, and freedom. The songs aren't Jewish, but at once they remind her of prayers and the feeling of belonging that she experienced around the Shabbat table with her family in Utica. In A Place to Belong, we experience the sting of guitar strings on Debbie's tender fingers as she's determined to learn how to play. We're there the first time she performs for her synagogue youth group, and they discover the charisma she possesses and her ability to bring everyone into the group. And finally, we're present when she first composes and then teaches a Jewish song of her own creation to a group of teenagers, and that seals her destiny. I hope after reading A Place to Belong, Debbie Friedman Sings Her Way Home, that you'll turn on your favorite Debbie Friedman song, sing loud and proud with your hearts full of joy. Thank you.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. You know, I'm a former USY advisor. So Debbie Friedman songs, as soon as you started speaking, I could just hear those tunes in the back of my mind. Thank you for sharing that with us.
My pleasure.
Awesome. We're going to hear next from Lisa Weimer, and Bridget Hodder, you're on deck. Lisa Weimer is an award-winning educator with over 25 years of teaching experience. Her second young adult novel, The Assignment, has received 11 honors, including being named a 2021 Sidney Taylor Notable Book. To date, The Assignment has been translated to Russian, Polish, Italian, and Korean. Her debut picture book, The Mysterious Outings, A Tale of Giving, will be published fall 2023 by Kalaniot. Lisa received the honor of being named one of the top 100 people positively influencing Jewish life 2021. And she's a graduate of UW-Madison. Lisa has 2 married sons and lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with her husband, Jim. Lisa, tell us all about it.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. It's a joy to be here with everyone tonight. I am so proud to say that my debut picture book is coming out in fall of 2023 by Kalaniot. We are still deciding on a title, but I am thrilled to tell you that this is a picture book that was inspired by my own grandfather. It has been in the works actually for 20 some odd years. And so for those of you that are out there writing, you just know that this can happen even 20 years later. So this is a story, as I said, inspired by my grandfather, about a boy who looks out his window and he sees that his father is leaving the house and he's carrying a box. And he wonders, what is in that box and where is his father going? So he goes and he asks his mother, and his mother says, oh, Dad will be back soon. He went out and about. And the tale continues. And the next night he sees the same thing, but this time it's his mother and his father that go out. And he goes and he asks his brother and then his sister, and he gets the same answer, that his father and his mother went out and about. This book is about giving tzedakah and doing so in an anonymous way. It is one of the highest levels of giving tzedakah based on Maimonides' 8 levels of tzedakah. And it's a beautiful tale of this boy finding out what his parents are doing and then having the desire to do the same, packing up his own box and waiting for one of his parents to come, and then anonymously going and leaving a special gift for a family in need. So look for the book in fall of 2023. I am so thrilled that Margot Lucas, an award-winning illustrator, is doing the illustrations. I've seen the preliminary drawings, and they are breathtaking. So thank you so much, AJL. It is a joy to be here with all of you.
Amazing. Well, I hope we don't have to wait 20 years for your follow-up to this one. Keep those good books coming. Thank you again. We're going to hear next from Bridget Hodder, followed quickly by Barbara and June, who will be speaking together. Bridget Hodder is an author, a language specialist, and autism therapist. She is Sephardic and the daughter and granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. Her work has received awards and recognition from Kirkus, PJ Library, the International Literacy Association, Book Riot, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other organizations. She is the chair of the Vanderbilt University Graduate School Advisory Board, a board member of Congregation Beth El of Sudbury River Valley, and co-administrator of the 6,000 plus strong community, Our Sephardic Family. Bridget, thanks so much for being here tonight. What will you be sharing with us?
Thank you. Thanks, AJL, Heidi, and Sylvie. Today I'm going to be sharing the button box. So my Sephardic grandmother used to say in Ladino, the language of our ancestors, "Cuando más oscurece, ya está para amanecer." And what that means is basically, don't worry, when it's the darkest, when things are darkest, that is just before the sun is about to arise and the dawn will come. Now, things can feel pretty dark right now for kids who are Jewish in the US and around the world, what with everything from Jewish space laser conspiracies to increased acts of violence and threats against Jews. So that's one reason why I'm so excited to share the button box with you tonight, because we can share it with those kids who are thirsty for strong, unapologetically Jewish, funny characters who solve their own problems and who actually stand up to hate. The button box is an Own Voices story, which I co-wrote with Muslim peace educator Fawzia Jalani. And the main character is a Sephardic Jewish girl, like I was, who has to figure out how to stand up to hate speech that she and her Muslim cousin run into at school. Their amazing Sephardic Granny Buena, who's based on my own grandmother, introduces them to a magic button that whisks the kids back in time so they learn what they need to know from their intertwined Jewish and Muslim heritage in the golden age of Sephardic Spain, back up until the late 1400s. Now, readers will discover what makes our Sephardic culture so special, from the Ladino language to our food, which includes things like chicken tagine and sufganiot, and to religious practices. Kids also learn how in ancient Spain, Muslim and Jewish people together fostered a beautiful flowering of science, mathematics, poetry, and the arts. Jewish knights jousted in courtyards and were generals in war. Jewish poets wrote in Arabic, and they won everyone's hearts. We're still knowing some of that poetry even today. And Maimonides, actually, is someone who was Sephardic. Now, what has been can be again. I believe this. History is our inspiration for the future. So basically, what I was saying is this kind of hate is exactly why we need to keep doing what we are doing. We will not be stopped. We will not even pause any longer than it takes to get right back up and on that horse again. So welcome back, Jews of all types and our friends and allies who are not Jews. Welcome. And I will finish by saying that we need to celebrate Jewish Book Month and Hanukkah with the deep joy that's part of all of our Jewish heritage and which is our gift. We will not be stopped. And I want to say, just as my grandmother used to say, paths of milk and honey to you all. And in Ladino, that is caminos de leche y miel. Do not falter. We are together on this road. Love to all of you.
Thank you so much, Bridget, for your poise in that moment and for bringing us this incredible story. I'm a big fan of the book, and let's just keep things going. Thank you again, Bridget. A reminder that we will hear now from Barbara Bites and June Sobel, and we'll have Dana Krameroff next up after that. I'm going to read both of your bios before I turn it over to Barbara and June. Barbara is an award-winning author of Jewish books for children, including The Sundown Kid, Sweet Tamales for Purim, and D.I.J. Use Your Jewish Creativity. Barbara is the creator of JewishBooksForKids.com. She has served as the chair of the Sidney Taylor Book Award Committee and is currently the Assistant Regional Advisor of SCBWI in Central California. Barbara can be found typing away at her desk with dogs snuggling at her feet. She enjoys reading, playing guitar, and building dog houses. Tonight, she's co-presenting with June Sobel. June Sobel loves picture books for the way they awaken the wonders of words in children and keep the child alive in adults. She is the author of over a dozen picture books for the very young, including The Goodnight Train, a best-selling bedtime story series. A graduate of Skidmore College and Stanford University, June lives in Westlake Village, California. Barbara and June co-authored the delightful Apples, All Year Round from Apples and Honey Press. It's a rollicking, rhyming journey about apples and the joy of Jewish holiday celebrations. The book received the PJ Library Author Incentive. June and Barbara, it's all you. And I hope only you.
Thank you. And thank you, Bridget, for your Grace Under Fire. It was very, very impressive.
Okay, and thank you, Sylvie, for the wonderful introduction. Barbara and I have known each other for many years and always dreamed of writing a book together. Our collaboration to create Apples was born out of friendship and a desire to do something meaningful during the long hours of the pandemic. When Barbara's daughter suggested we write a Jewish book about apples, the subject rang true for both of us. We were enthusiastic to create a rhyming story that connected apples with the year of Jewish holidays. Apples is an open-armed invitation to Jewish celebrations for families of all backgrounds.
Our hope is that young readers and little listeners will be engaged by the soothing, repetitive cadence of the text and will delight in Ruth Waters' colorful cut paper woodland animals. We'd love to share just a bit with you now. Apples, all year round, a celebration of Jewish holidays. Apples, all year round, juicy, fresh, and yummy. Apples, sweet new year. Apples dipped in honey for Rosh Hashanah. Apples, stars above. Apple cake to eat for Sukkot. Apples, wave your flag. Candy apple treat.
We discovered our favorite review on Instagram when a PJ Library mom of a toddler tagged us and wrote, "My daughter knows about 10 words, and apparently one of them is apples because she keeps yelling it as she brings me the Apples book for me to read." We love feedback from eager readers.
Apples can spark creative ideas for librarians, teachers, and parents, from crafts to puppet shows and even field trips to an apple farm. Recently, June shared the book at a farm-side Shabbat at the Boulder, Colorado JCC. For other ideas and activity sheets as well, please visit our websites. We have lots of resources there.
We're so proud of this delicious little book. We are also honored that both PJ Library and Apples and Honey Press shared our enthusiasm. We hope you find a place in your shelves for Apples All Year Round, a celebration of Jewish holidays.
Thank you all so much. We're
Thank
so happy
you.
to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful palate cleanser. And I hope that we see more collabs from you guys. I really love this book and sharing it with some of my youngest friends. So please do more. We'd love to
Thank
see
you.
it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Hopefully we'll be back with
We'll be
something
back.
else.
All right, can't wait. We're going to hear next from Dana Krameroff, and she'll be followed by another duo, Chaim and Yona. Be on deck. Dana is joining us for her first Kidlit AJL Author Showcase, but hopefully not her last. Dana is a mom of 3, a 5th grade ELA teacher, and middle grade writer. Her debut middle grade novel in verse will be out late August 2023 with Penguin Random House. She's excited to share the Do More Club with readers. Dana, we are excited to hear about it. Congrats on your debut. Please tell us all about it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm fangirling over all of you here. I'm absolutely humbled to be part of this group. Here's my very fancy paper copy of my book cover. I know it's pretty awesome, but I had to show it to you because I'm very proud of it. So the seeds for my book really got planted in many different ways. For one, my own upbringing, being one of only a handful of Jewish kids growing up in school. I worked as an instructional coach for many years, and I worked with a teacher whose 4th grade student came to her one day and said, "I'm sorry, I cannot read Number the Stars. I just don't believe the Holocaust ever happened." And also, the third thing that really propelled me into writing this book was when my own synagogue was Zoom bombed in June of 2020 during the pandemic. And all of those things really kind of helped me put myself in my chair and to type those words. So my main character, Josh, is an 11-year-old young man who hides who he is as a Jewish kid. He believes he's the only Jewish kid in the school, and really is. When his school is covered in swastikas spray painted on the doors of the building, he wants to hide even more, but he decides to tell. And when he does tell, he's faced with more things that come against him that are negative, but he also decides to form the Do More Club, which is his way of repairing the whole world, and to be, take the ideals of Tikkun Olam and be a part of that. And so what he learns, though, is that he can't repair the whole world. When his own synagogue is Zoom bombed, and he learns that he might not be able to repair the whole world, but he can repair his own little part of it. And it's really a call to action for teachers, parents, middle graders to find small ways that they can spread kindness and do more in their own schools and communities. And my hope is that for all kids that hide who they are, they can see themselves in the pages of my story, in hopes that they will be able to come out with whatever they need to come out with. And so I'm really excited to have this come out to the world in August, and looking forward to see what comes from it. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to add it to my own school library. Thank you for doing your part of repairing the word Tikkun Olam by bringing amazing Jewish books into it. Thank you again. We are going to hear next from Chaim Bezalel and Yona Ben Levi, and on deck is Stacy Nakowitz. Chaim and Yona are a husband and wife collaboration of 33 years. They have homes and studios in Stanwood, Washington, where they maintain an art center, and in Ashkelon, Israel. In addition to original art, which is in many public, private, and museum collections, they have exhibited internationally, most recently at the Cambridge Museum. They have been publishing since 1995. Women of Valor, a handbook, has had several printings since then. Last year, Chaim published The Bible is Not for Children, containing sculpture to be exhibited in the 2023 at the Haaretz Museum in Tel Aviv. Yona and Chaim, welcome. What would you like to share with us tonight?
Thank you.
We are very happy to be with you. And this is a book that we are going to explore now that we have put together this year, but it began in our lives, the story of Esther, many years ago when I met Chaim. I delivered a birthday card to him because I had to deliver a illuminated manuscript about the Esther scroll to somebody in the neighborhood where he was living. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm leaving a birthday card for him. And we've been together ever since. And we've been working on collaborations. Even though we do our own work, we love to still collaborate. And this is our latest.
So when I published the Bible is Not for Children, I included stories of all these biblical characters, and I tried to include women. Well, I left out Esther, lo and behold. Well, the story of Esther and the Megillah has to be for children. I mean, you dress up and everything. So I landed up writing this poem, and then Yona, who had done illuminations professionally in Jerusalem, illuminated it in her own particular way. And we'd like to read from the book. So it's called The Whole Megillah, the Book of Esther in Verse. Before we lift the curtain, let's introduce the cast. The characters you're about to meet lived in the distant past. Search the book of Esther, of God there is no mention, but he has other ways, it seems, of gaining our attention. The names themselves have all been changed. The Hebrews are now Persian, but changing names to blend in more doesn't always mean conversion.
My turn. Esther born Hadassah, which is Hebrew for a myrtle, takes the name of Ishtar, goddess of all things fertile. Mordecai, a Benjamin, of unquestionable piety, is named after Marduk, Mesopotamian deity. King Ahasuerus, Xerxes by another appellation, ruled a massive empire with a polyglot population. Ethiopians and Indians, Babylonians and Jews, 127 provinces of varied cultural views.
Introducing Vashti, the king's beautiful trophy wife. She never takes the stage, and this becomes a source of strife. Haman is the villain, his name and memory be blotted. The Jews would all have perished from the evil that he plotted. This completes the roster of all the major players, and now on to the plot as it unfolds in several layers. And we'll read one more.
The story begins in the palace when the king throws a giant feast, inviting his ministers and servants from the greatest to the least. 180 days it lasts. Imagine half a year. Then a public garden party where they served both wine and beer. But no one was compelled to drink like a drunken frat house beggar. Kegger. But all were given food and drink, from the prince down to the beggar. When the king was fully in his cup and feeling rather jolly, he summoned Vashti to appear to throw his guests.
To show his guests his dolly. So anyway, this will be printed and published by Dekel Press, and our website is dekelpress.com. That's DEKEL press.com. Hadekel is the street where we have a home in Ashkelon, and it means a palm tree. And that's our logo is a palm tree. So dekelpress.com, and there are you can see a few of these pages on the site, and we'll be publishing it in January. And thank you very much for allowing us to be part of this.
Oh, what a treat. Really so delightful, and I'm so glad to hear it will be out just in time for Purim. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight. And it looks terrific and it sounds great. Rhyme is so hard, and you guys nailed it. So thank you. We'll be hearing next from Stacy Nakowitz, followed by Gloria Coster. Stacy Nakowitz is a middle school librarian and former language arts teacher with 30+ years of experience in middle grade education. She holds master's degrees from Columbia University and Kent State University. She is an MFA candidate in writing for children and young adults at Vermont College of Fine Arts. Stacy received the Author Incentive Award from PJ Library in 2020. Her debut middle grade novel, The Prince of Steel Pier by Carr-Ben, was named to the Evanston Public Library's 101 Great Books for Kids 2022 list and was an October selection for PJ Our Way. Stacy lives in Columbus, Ohio with her husband and their perfect cat, Queen Esther. So great that you followed those guys. Stacy, from one school librarian to another, welcome. What will you be sharing with us this evening?
Thanks very much, Sylvie. I'm so happy and honored to be here with all of you. I'm an author, and as Sylvie said, I'm also a school librarian. I work as a middle school librarian in an independent school in Columbus, Ohio. I saw a hole in my collection for historical fiction with authentic Jewish characters in books that are not about the Holocaust and World War II. The Jewish experience is so much more than just those years of our history, and it's important for kids of all faiths and backgrounds to understand that. So I set out to write a book I thought was missing from my shelves, and here it is. Here's my book. The Prince of Steel Pier, published by Carr-Ben, is a middle grade novel appropriate for kids ages 8 to 14. The book takes place in 1975 Atlantic City, New Jersey. That was a time of transition for Atlantic City. The city's best days were behind it, and casino gambling was inevitably coming to town. So the city was on the cusp of changing, and no one really knew what the future held. That change is echoed in the story of Joey Goodman, a 13-year-old Jewish boy who was spending August of 1975 at his grandparents' kosher hotel on the Atlantic City boardwalk. Joey believes his voice is being drowned out by those of his big, boisterous Jewish family. Like a typical 13-year-old, Joey is wrestling with who he is and what his place is in the world. He's tired of feeling like everyone coddles him because he's sensitive and not as tough as his 3 brothers. One day, Joey goes out onto the boardwalk to play skee-ball, his favorite arcade game, and he meets a group of mobsters. The mobsters see Joey in a very different light than his family. They believe Joey is tough and strong and all the things he doesn't think his family sees. The head gangster, Artie Bishop, the so-called King of Steel Pier, even asks Joey to chaperone his daughter on the boardwalk for a few weeks. But running with Artie and his gang turns out to be much more complicated than Joey bargained for. The lies he tells his family begin to pile on one another, and when Artie asks Joey for a very dangerous favor, Joey must decide where he really belongs. The Prince of Steel Pier is at once funny, poignant, suspenseful, and heartwarming. Joey's Jewish identity is at the heart of the story as he practices his religion with his family, experiences anti-Semitic microaggressions, and even questions God's existence. The Jewish Book Council says of The Prince of Steel Pier, filled with mystery, mayhem, and meaningful friendship relationships, this fast-paced historical novel will capture any reader's attention. The Prince of Steel Pier was named today, I just found out today, was named to Tablet Magazine's Best Jewish Children's Books of 2022. I'm very proud of that. As well as the Evanston, Illinois Public Library's Great Books of 2022 list. It was also an October 2022 PJ Our Way selection. I am available for school and synagogue visits in person and virtually, and I wrote an extensive educator's guide to go along with my book. I'm thrilled to share The Prince of Steel Pier with all of you. Please visit my website at stacynakowitz.com or find me on Twitter and Facebook to learn more about me and my writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy. What a treat to have you here tonight, and congrats on making that tablet list. Super coveted accolade on that. So mazel tov on that. We're going to hear next from Gloria Coster, followed by Ann Dublin. Gloria, she's a public and school librarian, and she belongs to the Children's Book Committee of Bank Street College of Education. She enjoys both city and country life, dividing her time between Manhattan and the small town of Pound Ridge, New York. Gloria has 3 adult children and a bunch of energetic grandkids. Her published picture books include Mitzi's Mitzvah, Little Red Ruthie, A Hanukkah Tale, and Dance the Hora Isadora. These are all PJ Library selections. Gloria, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here and tell you about my new book, Dance the Horror Isadora. It was released in September by Apples and Honey Press, and it's a PJ Library selection. Isadora is a little girl who is full of life. She loves her ballet class. She loves her dance teacher, Madame Delphine. She loves the fact that she's going to be the flower girl in her cousin Rachel's wedding. But as the story begins, Isadora has a problem. Her dance class is quite diverse, and during sharing time, her classmates get to perform. There's Lucy, who's a hip-hop dancer, and Mateo, who does ballroom dancing and can do the cha-cha. And then there's Chloe, who's the class's step dance star. But Isadora has no special dance. Well, enter Grandma, who's a central character in my book. And of course, she can tell that Isadora is down in the dumps. So after a little stop at the bakery, don't all grandmas know the power of a cookie? She reminds Isadora that Rachel's wedding is that Sunday, and she hints that the wedding may be where Isadora finds her own special dance. Of course, that's true, but before we get to the celebration, there are several Jewish wedding scenes in my book. Isadora is proud to be the one to calm her cousin's nerves when they're getting dressed. She's proud to be the first one to walk down the aisle. And through Isadora, readers unfamiliar with the huppah or the breaking of the glass will learn about these traditions, and Jewish children may relate to weddings that they themselves have attended. After the ceremony, it's party time, and I love the centerfold of my book. My illustrator, Barbara Bonfini, did a wonderful job of capturing the excitement and the energy of the dance. When Isadora watches from the sidelines, her feet tingle. She's dying to join the circle, but it takes Grandma's gentle encouragement for her to give it a try. We'll practice the steps later, Grandma says. For now, just let the joy sweep you along. And that's exactly what happens. Later on, Grandma teaches Isadora the necessary hops, skips, and jumps, all of which she picks up quickly, earning the admiration of the other guests. Rachel, who calls Isadora the family's horror pro, gives her little cousin the ornament from the top of the wedding cake, and it happens to be a dancing bride and groom. When Isadora returns to dance class, she's finally able to show her own special dance. Madame Delphine puts Havana Gila on her playlist, and after Isadora performs solo, she teaches her multicultural class to do the horror. The JBC Review calls Dance the Horror Isadora a joyous and delightful book, so much that it is recommended to wear dancing shoes while reading. My book is a story about finding your own way to shine, whatever your passion happens to be. And with such a strong grandmother character, it demonstrates the Jewish value of L'Ador Vador from generation to generation. You can find out more about me at my website, gloriacoster.com. And finally, I'd just like to give a little shout out for an earlier book since it's Hanukkah season, and that earlier book is Little Red Ruthie, A Hanukkah Tale. Thanks so much for having me. It's been wonderful to be here with everybody.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining this dance circle of authors here tonight. And I very much look forward to sharing this one at school. It looks like a really fun one for story time, and it has the perfect built-in movement break, doesn't it? All right. Well, thank you so much, Gloria. We're going to hear next from Anne Dublin, and I'll tell Danielle Joseph that you are going to be on deck after that. Anne is an award-winning author of books for young people. She was born in a displaced persons camp in Salzburg, Austria. She grew up in Toronto and was an elementary school teacher and librarian for over 25 years, including 10 years as a librarian at the Holy Blossom Temple, Toronto. She has won or been nominated for numerous awards, including the Canadian Jewish Literary Award for Youth, her last two historical novels. Anne's latest book is grounded in research from books, the internet, memoirs, and interviews. Anne serves on the executive of the newly received chapter of AJL Canada and is a frequent reviewer of books for young people for AJL News. And I've enjoyed both your books and your AJL book talks for several years running. It's always a treat to speak with you. What will you be sharing with us tonight?
Thank you, Sylvia. And thank you, Heidi and Kate, too. This is so exciting. Tonight, I want to share my new book called She's a Mensch, 10 Amazing Jewish Women. It's published by Second Story Press, and it'll be out in spring 2023. It's a collective biography of 10 unsung Jewish women, women who dedicated their lives to doing remarkable things. The women come from many different countries and were all born in the 20th century. They worked in many different fields. I included an athlete, a journalist, a scientist, a judge, a translator, an educator, a rabbi, and a dancer. Each woman went beyond her field of work to make the world a better place. So how did this book come about? Well, as Sylvia mentioned, I write books for AJL News and Reviews, and I began to wonder why so many biographies about Jewish women are about Anne Frank or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thank you, Deborah, for your new book about Debbie Friedman. Oh, what a relief. So I wanted to figure out how maybe I could fill a little space in that gap in library collections. I wanted to write about one particular Jewish woman I admired. So I went to Margie Wolf, my publisher at Second Story Press here in Toronto. And the conversation went something like this. Margie, I said, I want to write about Marion Wiesel, the wife of Elie Wiesel. She's an important writer, translator, and producer. Most people haven't heard about her. So Margie thought for a minute and she said, Anne, why don't you write about 10 Jewish women who are unknown? So then I thought for a minute and said, well, sure, why not? But where do you start? So I went to the wonderful website called the Jewish Women's Archive, and I began my search. And I sifted through hundreds of entries until finally I had a short list. And then, as Sylvie mentioned, I did all kinds of research, books, articles, the internet, YouTube, interviews, emails, you name it. And you know what? With each woman, I began to feel a connection. For example, with Rosalie Abella, a recently retired Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. Well, we were both born in a DP camp after the war, and our parents settled in Toronto. In fact, for a time, I lived in the same neighborhood as Rosalie and attended the same synagogue Hebrew school. I could go on and on about the connections. I hope I've honored each of the women through my writing, through this book. Each of them has taught me better how to be a mensch. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It sounds wonderful. I'm so looking forward to reading and sharing it and having you again to our next author showcase. Thank you again, Anne. We're going to hear next from Danielle Joseph, and I'll read her biography in just a moment. I want to put David Tabatsky on deck. Danielle, thank you for being here. She's the author of the picture book, I Want to Ride the Tap Tap, a Bank Street Best children's book, and CBC Notable Social Studies book. She's also the author of the middle grade novel, PJ Library Selection, Sydney A. Frankel's Summer Mix-Up, and 3 YA novels, Shrinking Violet, Indigo Blues, and Pure Red. Shrinking Violet was adapted into the Disney Channel movie Radio Rebel. Danielle was born in Cape Town, South Africa, currently lives in Maryland. Her picture book biography about a Jewish South African freedom fighter, Ruth First Never Backs Down, debuts fall 2023 from Carbed. Danielle, thank you for being here tonight. Please tell us all about Ruth First Never Backs Down, or whatever you were going to share.
Thank you, Sylvie, and thank you to everybody else that put this together tonight. I'm very honored to be here and tell you a little bit about my upcoming picture book biography, Ruth First Never Back Down. It's about Jewish South African freedom fighter Ruth First. The illustrations are by Gabor Utomo, and his illustrations are stunning. I'm going to just show you a little preview printed from my computer of the cover, and hopefully you'll get to see more of them coming up. This story follows Ruth's journey from her early call to action to join the fight against apartheid, to her work as a journalist and her quest to expose the truth. Ruth had been threatened, jailed, banned, exiled, everything you name it, for speaking up, but that did not stop her. And I decided to write the story because I was also born in Cape Town, South Africa, and have always been inspired by the people that fought hard against the apartheid regime. And like Ruth's family, my family immigrated to South Africa from Lithuania in the early 1900s because of the pogroms. My Aunt Brenda, who worked tirelessly as a professor, passed away several years ago, and she was also an education director for equality in education in South Africa, and she was also my inspiration to write this book. And like Anne said, I wanted people to hear more about other Jewish women that have inspired us really all over the world, and that's one of the reasons I also chose to write about Ruth First. I'm honored that the foreword in the book has been provided by Albie Sachs. Albie Sachs is 87 years old, and he was a freedom fighter alongside Ruth First, who's also worked with Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and many other amazing people. The release date is November 7th from Carbon Books, a division of Learner, so you'll have to wait a little bit for it, but I'm really looking forward to getting it to everybody's hands. The themes in the book are activism, human rights, feminism, fighting injustice, and standing up for others. Ruth was an incredibly creative person. She was very driven. She had an early exposure to standing up for others. Her parents held meetings in their home, and they spoke out against anti-Black racism. And Ruth attended these meetings as a very young child. In the book, there's a glossary of many other freedom fighters and a timeline of everything that Ruth did. I would be talking forever if I told you all the things she did, but she was a journalist. She wrote for magazines. She was a photojournalist. She was jailed for 117 days by the South African government for speaking out. And then she put together a one-act play after she got out and was exiled in London. So really an amazing person. Never let any of this stop her. At her funeral, Nelson Mandela said, "Her life and her death remain a beacon to all who love liberty." And I really believe that. So again, it comes out November 7th. And if you want to read something of mine before then, there's a Sidney A. Frankel's Summer Mix-Up, which Sylvie mentioned, also by Carbon Books. It's a funny contemporary novel. So thank you all for listening. And thank you, Sylvie.
Awesome. Thank you again. I noticed that Ruth First is also featured in She's a Mensch. So I love that. Thank you for pointing that out, Anne. And I hope that this story of Ruth First is not your last offering for our Jewish Kidlit community. We're going to hear next from David Tabatsky, and I'm going to put Ilana Rubinstein on deck. David Tabatsky, son of a cantor, is a writer based in New York City. He has also performed as an actor, clown, and juggler around the world in venues such as Lincoln Center, Radio City Music Hall, the Beacon Theater, throughout Europe and Japan, and most notably at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Sweet. David is the co-author of several books about cancer and the author of Right for Life, Communicating Your Way Through Cancer. He was the consulting editor for Marlo Thomas's bestseller, The Right Words at the Right Time, Volume 2, Your Turn. His memoir, American Misfit, was published in 2017. David, I understand you'll be sharing your historical fiction novel, The Boy Behind the Door, How Solomon Kul Escaped the Nazis. What would you like to tell us about it?
Let me jump right in. Sal, come here, please. My mother was calling me from the kitchen. I need your help. Mama, I'm studying. Sal, there's so much to do with your bar mitzvah tomorrow. Exactly. I have a lot to study, so I do it correctly. Oh, I'm sure you'll do fine, Sal. Listen to me. Louis is busy playing football. Daniel and Tinny are at work, and your father, God bless him, he can't pull himself away from the radio. Mama, I protested, but no luck. Sal, go across the street and ask Frank's mother if I can borrow her good lace tablecloth. Now? You need that right now? What, you should go Saturday morning before we go to the synagogue? She was trying to tease me. Sal, do it now, please. Ugh. Why can't Papa go? Just then, my father walked into the kitchen, looking like a ghost. His face was frozen. He stopped in the doorway as if someone else was controlling his legs. He didn't say a word. He didn't even look like a human being who could speak. He stared straight ahead at my mother, turned like a robot, and stared at me. Then he turned and left the kitchen without saying another word. It was as if a judge had appeared out of nowhere in our house and ordered my father to be sent away to prison, or worse, to be put to death. And no words could change the verdict. After a year of dreading the inevitable, but mostly never imagining that such a bad dream could come true, it had finally happened. On Friday, May 10th, 1940, Germany had invaded our country just one day before my bar mitzvah. So this is how the story begins of Solomon Kuhl, who is the real life inspiration for this book, The Boy Behind the Door, how Solomon Kuhl escaped the Nazis. It's fairly straightforward. And it traces him from this time, just before his bar mitzvah, over the next 5 years until 1945, and how he survived in Amsterdam, all over the city, escaping, jumping from one place to another, hiding out and going through disguises, being tracked up into the north of Holland, and finally returning home to find out that his entire family had perished in the concentration camps. And he lived a long, long life. He has 2 sons and grandchildren surviving him in Israel. And his story is especially resonant, I think, for young readers from the ages of 12 to 18 who are in that time period of the life that he lived in surviving through the Second War. The book is published by Amsterdam Publishers, which is dedicated to publishing Holocaust stories. They're located, like their name, in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And I was fortunate to spend time with Saul when he took me through the city and showed me all the different places that he managed to hide and escape during the 1940s.
David, thank you so much. And I do hope that there's going to be an audio version of this published and that you will read it.
I'm putting those elements together. I was actually in Berlin, Germany, where I used to live, and I was all set up with friends of mine who have a recording studio there and a radio station, who I used to work with. And I was going to perform, but I got COVID when I was in Berlin, so I had to cancel the whole project. So I'm looking to find the right combination to do it here in New York or in some other place that I have access to. Yeah.
Well, keep us posted, and I hope you've made a full recovery since then.
Oh yeah, I'm fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm going to introduce Ilana Rubenstein in a moment, and I'm going to give Evelyn Goldfinger the heads up to be ready next. Ilana.
Sylvie, I don't see Ilana in the meeting. I think that when the disruption happened, she must have gotten kicked out and has not rejoined.
What a bummer.
If she rejoins, we can maybe add her later, but she's not here at the moment.
Okay. What a bummer. Sorry to miss her. Understandable, of course. We'll move on then to Evelyn Goldfinger, and she'll be followed by Jacqueline Jules. Evelyn Goldfinger, aka Miss Eve, is a spiritual leader, performer, author, cantorial soloist, and Jewish educator. Her mission is to empower children, families, and educators to explore spirituality and Jewish values through her shows, workshops, books, and her YouTube videos. Check them out at Toratron. Evelyn holds a YU certification in experimental Jewish education. She's a certified storyteller educator by Rise New Cage. She serves as Rise Young Learners faculty. She is the author of the best-selling book, The Shabbat Treasure. Evelyn's just released Words from My Heart, the hands-on Jewish prayer book, a unique experiential book that helps children and families explore spirituality and Jewish prayer. You can check out her website at shalomeve.com. Evelyn, we're so glad you're here. What would you like to share with us this evening?
Hi, thank you, Sylvie. Thank you, Heidi, and everyone. I'm so honored to be here and be learning from all of you. And today I would like to share with you about my new book. It's called Words from My Heart, a hands-on Jewish prayer book. And this book is inspired by a story that it was attributed to the Baal Shem Tov. So the holiest day of the year, and everyone is at the synagogue praying, repeating the prayers once and again, and it's a long, long day. And all of a sudden, Aleph, Bet, Bet, everybody stares. Gimel, Dalet, Hey, hushing and whispers, Dat, Zan, Het, Tet. What are you doing, little girl? We're trying to pray here. What is going on? Aleph, Bet, Bet. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's that I'm also praying. I'm sorry, little girl, but you're repeating the Aleph Beis, the Jewish alphabet. Well, I am too young to learn the prayers, and I don't know them. But I did learn the Aleph Bet. So I'm repeating this special day the Aleph Bet, and I hope that God listens to my Aleph Bet, and that God rearranges the letters to form the words that my heart wants to say. Do you think that God understands my prayers? And everyone agreed that God listened and understood, and that was one of the purest form of prayer. Thank you, Maya. Shalom, everybody. Glad to be here. So this story inspired this book, Words from My Heart, the Hands-on Jewish Prayer book. And my hope is to help children, parents, educators to explore spirituality and Jewish prayer, and to listen and to express the words in their hearts. It's a colorful book, 40 handcrafted pages. I'm trying to show a little bit, with games, songs, words in Hebrew. It's hands-on, it's immersive, and it also has traditional prayers and an invitation for kids to write or draw their own prayers. And through QR codes, they can also access videos with Miss Eve, me, and my puppet friends, where I model prayer and songs and more resources related to these 4 prayer concepts. So the book is based on my Words from My Heart approach, which explores 4 of the central prayer concepts in Jewish prayer, and I would dare to say in prayer in general, which are Todah, gratitude, saying thank you; Bevakasha, please, asking for help; Slicha, saying I'm sorry, but also learning and repairing our mistakes; and hallelujah, wow, expressing awe and wonder. We know from science nowadays even how important it is to have a spiritual connection, that we are spiritual beings. And I aim with this book to start a conversation about what prayer is, the kavanah, the intention behind prayer, that it's key also in Judaism, and spontaneous prayer, that it's also part of our beautiful culture, even from the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. And so my goal is to start a conversation about what prayer is and what it can be for children, and also to start a conversation about God. Let's talk about God. We don't talk about God enough sometimes. So let's call God Hashem, or Adonai, or the greater source, or one, or the greatest artist, as I like to address God. And let's build that relationship, because even science shows nowadays that it's a protective factor against depression, that it's so present, sadly, especially after the pandemic, and against substance abuse, and against disconnection. As we know from our rabbis, like Rabbi Nachman used to say, try to be joyous and try to connect from the joy. And so children are invited to draw, cut, play, paste, and all these wonderful things. And it is my hope that the words from my heart reach you and your family, and that the words in your heart elevate us all. And you can find more information about the book and the workshops that I do for teachers and educators with the Words from My Heart approach at shalomeve.com. And yeah, I invite you to think, what's the word in your heart today? And hopefully you will share it with all of us.
Wow. Well, Toda, thank you. And hallelujah, wow, what a presentation. Thank you. I especially loved your puppet, Maya. And thank you again for being here tonight. We're going to hear next from Jacqueline Jules, followed by Janie Amos. Jacqueline Jules is the author of over 50 books for children, including The Hardest Word, The Porridge Pot Goblin, Light the Menorah, Picnic at Camp Shalom, Sarah Laughs, Good Night Shema, Never Say a Mean Word Again. Her most recent book, My Name is Hamburger, was inspired by her own childhood growing up in a small southern town as the daughter of a Jewish German-speaking immigrant. Visit her online at jacquelinejules.com. Jacqueline, over 50 books. Tell us about just one tonight, please. The floor is yours.
My middle grade verse novel, My Name is Hamburger, was published by Carban in October, was inspired by my own 1960s childhood in Southern Virginia as a Jewish minority and the daughter of a German-speaking immigrant. The 10-year-old protagonist, Trudy Hamburger, is bullied for her German last name and misunderstood by close friends. When she finally claims her identity to say her name with pride, Trudy accepts that her family has traditions like everyone else. She is different, but not in every way. Since this is a verse novel, I think the best way to give you a sense of the book is to read just a tiny excerpt. This poem describes Trudy's attachment to a Jewish way of life and her longing to make others in her community, especially her best friend Lila, understand. Jewish church. Lila pouts the next morning when she sees me in the driveway, dressed in purple velveteen and patent leather shoes. She complains that I'm always gone on Saturdays until the afternoon when my family gets home from Beth Israel congregation, 30 miles from Colburn. Why do you go to that Jewish church, she asks. You should come with me on Sundays. New Hope Baptist is close, only 4 blocks from Bellwood Court. It's true that services on Sundays would bring me closer to her and everyone else in Colburn, but it would take me away from the Saturday mornings I've known since I was Sammy's age, hearing Rabbi Hertz chant the Torah, his voice rising and falling like a wave on the ocean. At Beth Israel, something inside me floats, singing songs I know so well. My lips move all on their own. I wave at Lila from the station wagon window, wondering if she'll ever understand how a place miles from where I live can be where I feel most at home. And My Name is Hamburger is not the only new book I have out this fall. I also have the Porridge Pot Goblin, which was released in September by Apples and Honey Press. In the Porridge Pot Goblin, a brother and sister work together to outwit a mischievous goblin who is threatening to disturb their Shabbat. This tale, drawn from Talmudic references, features a single working mom in an Eastern European setting. I hope you will visit my website at jacquelinejules.com to learn more about these books and others. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a treat, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to go right over to Janie, followed by Joanne Levy. Janie believes when the world is falling apart, we're just one laugh away from putting it together again. Her picture book, Latkes for Santa Claus, was a finalist in the 2022 International Book Award. Easter Eggs and Matzo Balls, her second blended holiday picture book, will be released early 2023. Janie's essays, stories, and articles have been published in numerous magazines, anthologies, and websites. In 2016, she won honorary mention in the Irma Bombeck Writing Competition. No award is more important to her than her family. Janie, what would you like to share with us tonight?
Well, hi. First of all, I just want to say, can you guys all hear me? Because my computer was making some buzzing noises. We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I'm just honored to be here, and I'm like humbled to hear all these people with these amazing stories. I mean, this is my first showcase here, so I'm going to be talking about my second blended holiday book, which is Easter eggs and matzo balls. And I don't have the book cover yet. It comes out in January and I'm waiting for the cover. But here's the picture of it. Anyways, it's very hard to see, I think, with the light here. Anyways, my first one, Locked is for Santa Claus, was so successful. It was published by Sky Pony Press that then they bought the second book. And I want to say one thing about my illustrator, who's amazing. And when you write a book that has two holidays in it, each page had to be sort of balanced. And I was very concerned with that. I have hands-on making sure that each page showed both religions equally. I didn't want it to be overpowered one way or the other. Anyways, these stories are based on my experience raising my blended family. I was raised Jewish. I never celebrated Christmas or had an Easter egg hunt until I married my husband. He was raised Catholic. He never had Passover or Hanukkah until he married me. And so once we were together, we started celebrating all the holidays. So besides being a lot of cooking and total exhaustion from what seemed like so many celebrations, I started wondering, what were our children thinking? Were they confused? So I went, like any good mother who was an avid reader, I went to the bookstore and I couldn't find anything. I mean, I found absolutely nothing that I could show the blended family. So like any good writer, I wrote my own. So I wrote the first one. And like Liza said, I think early on, it took me 20 years to sell that first book. So I don't know if it was timing or however it was. But anyways, so after I finally sold the first one, then sold the second one. So in Easter eggs and matzo balls, the main characters are the same as the first one, a little Jewish girl named Anna and her non-Jewish stepbrother named Michael. And Michael writes a text message to the Easter Bunny at the beginning of the book. And he says, I've always celebrated Easter, but my new stepsister Anna celebrates Passover. I wonder to have something special in the golden egg when you bring it. If I think of something, I'll let you know. So while he's waiting for an answer, he totally annoys Anna by following her all around the house. Meanwhile, Anna has her own problems. All of her Passover items are missing. She can't find anything. So every time she goes to look for something and she can't find it, Michael has an aha moment and says, this is what the Easter Bunny needs to put in the golden egg. But everything that he suggests are too big. And so there's little poems throughout, such as, I rolled the placemat in the egg. I hopped and wiggled my nose. Push, pat, squish, squash. I can't get the egg to close. And so on through several items that don't fit into the golden egg. But in the end, Michael does more than find something special to put in the golden egg. He saves Anna's favorite part of the Passover Seder. At the end of the book, is a glossary of Easter terms and Passover terms. And my favorite Aunt Evie's, somebody's calling me, my favorite Aunt Evie's matzo ball soup. And it's written really simply for children to follow so they can go home and cook, with their parent supervision, of course. Anyways, what I want to say in conclusion is that these books I write, to me, are more than just the celebration of the holidays. It's also a story about step siblings, and there's so many blended families today that, oh my God, there's so many blended families that, okay, that phone call just totally whacked me out. I'm going to read this last sentence over again.
Go for it.
I'm sorry. It's more than just a celebration of Easter and Passover. It's also a story about step siblings, of which there are so many in today's world, learning to get along with each other and discovering in the end that whatever they are doing, hunting for Easter eggs or searching for the Afikomen or celebrating Hanukkah or celebrating Christmas, doing it together is just what makes the holidays better. And I do think there's a great need for this blended holiday book and here's the Latkes for Santa Claus cover. Anyways, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry about my phone call disruption.
Not a problem at all. Thank you so much for presenting tonight and for bringing these important stories into the world. There is definitely a need for books like these. There are so many blended families, blended in different ways. And thank you for shining a light on them and showing that there are lots of different ways that families can celebrate together and blend traditions.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. We're going to hear next from Joanne Levy and put Joshua Levy on deck. I think I got that right. Pretty sure I did. Joanne Levy is the author of the Sidney Taylor Notable and Canadian Jewish Literary Award winning Sorry for Your Loss. Her other books include Small, Medium, at Large, The Sun Will Come Out, and 3 titles in the Orca Current ultra readable line, The Book of Elsie, Fish Out of Water, and Double Trouble. She can usually be found at her computer, either creating spreadsheets, sometimes just for fun, or channeling her younger self into books. Joanne lives in rural Ontario, Canada, with her husband and several pets, one of whom vomited during the writing of this bio. Yikes. Joanne, let's hope no one vomits during tonight's program. What will you be sharing with us tonight?
Thank you so much, Sylvie. And thank you again to AJL for letting me return to the Author Showcase to talk about my books. Last time I was here, I talked about Sorry for Your Loss, which actually went on to become a Sydney Taylor Notable. As Sylvie mentioned, it was also a finalist in the Governor General's Award in Canada and won the Canadian Jewish Book Award in its category. So I can't stop talking about it. But today I'm here to talk about my most recent book, which is the Book of Elsie. Elsie is my response to the terrible and terribly alarming rise of anti-Semitism in recent years. I told my editor as we were editing the book that my greatest wish is that my book quickly becomes obsolete and historical fiction because anti-Semitism and all prejudice becomes obsolete and a thing of the past. However, here we are. Anyway, this book aligns with the story of the Book of Esther, following Elsie Rose Miller, who can't wait for her synagogue's upcoming Purim party. But when she hears that the party and even the synagogue are in dire financial straits, Elsie decides she's going to save both. But when an act of hate-fueled vandalism threatens the shul and Elsie's beloved community, she channels the fierce and brave Queen Esther and rallies her community and beyond. I should mention that the book is not all doom and gloom. There are some funny and heartwarming moments with Elsie, her bestie, and her dads. I actually think this book contains the funniest scene I've ever written in my life. It still makes me giggle every time I read it. And you authors out there will know that not only do you write a scene, but you read it a million times. So if it's making me laugh still, I think it's pretty funny. But I do invite you to let me know what you think. I encourage lively debate if you don't think it's funny at all. And there's also a great recipe for hamantaschen in the back of the book. And I should mention that while I think all tweens will enjoy the Book of Elsie, as Sylvie mentioned in my bio, it's another in Orca's Currents line of ultra-accessible books. And these books are geared toward middle grade readers who may struggle with reading for whatever reason. They're short books, they're action-packed, and they're even printed with dyslexia-friendly fonts and lots of white space, so they're easy to read. And I hope you'll check it out. And you can find out more about me, my books, my research, and how to book me for virtual and in-person visits on my website at joannelevy.com. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. No one puked. I'm
No
sure
one
everyone,
puked.
I'm sure everyone will laugh and enjoy the levity that you've added to what could be a heavy story. Thank you again for being here. Always a treat. And we're going to move from Joanne Levy over to Joshua Levy and put Leslie Kimmelman on deck. Joshua S. Levy is the author of several middle grade novels, 7th Grade versus the Galaxy, 8th Grade versus the Machines, as well as the upcoming The Jake Show, coming in May of 2023. Last Summer in Outer Space, August 2023, and others. A former middle school teacher, Josh lives with his wife and children in New Jersey, where he practices as a lawyer. Visit him at joshuasimonlevy.com or on Twitter at Joshua S. Levy. Joshua S. Levy, welcome. What you got for us?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me again. Yeah, I'm Josh Levy. I'm so happy to be here. Honored to be among all your company. So much that's already been said. It just resonates with me so much, and it's just so always rejuvenating to be in spaces like this. And thank you to AJL for putting this event on. I am here to talk about my upcoming book, The Jake Show. It is a middle grade book that will be published by HarperCollins, Catherine Teagan Books on May 23rd, 2023. I am gonna start by reading for you all my publisher's longer description of the book, which I'm gonna confess to you, I've agonized over in every single iteration, and I still kind of do, but this is the intro to the book. For TV obsessed Jake Lightman, his parents' divorce is like his favorite show getting canceled, the worst. Now torn between two very different homes, he must navigate a constant tug of war. His strictly Orthodox Jewish mother wants him to play the role of Yaakov, a Torah-loving kid who never watches TV. His secular father wants Jacob to focus on science and math and leave all that Jewish stuff behind. Depending on where Jake is on any given day, he changes his clothes, changes his language, changes himself. On Jake's first day at a new school, Caleb and Tehillah barrel into his life. Suddenly he has two friends who seem to like the real Jake. And when they invite him to Camp Gershoni for the summer, Jake knows he has to go, even if his parents won't let them. With help from Caleb and Tehillah, Jake concocts a web of lies to get to camp. But Jake struggles to keep up the ruse and be a good friend at the same time. As the cost of lying grows, Jake must decide what's truly important or risk losing the people he cares about the most. I know I only have so much time, so I'm going to use this last minute to share three overarching things that mean a lot to me about this book. First, that it's a very Jewish book, and it doesn't shy away in many respects from how Jewish it is. I can't believe how fortunate I am to be putting out a book into the world with a cover that has Jake here without a yarmulke, here with him with a yarmulke, and here with him in a black hat, depending on which community he is currently inhabiting. It's a book about a kid who eats deli roll around the Shabbat table. And while not all of the Jewish characters always behave and make the best decisions, I hope the reader walks away with a sense of the love they all have for each other and how much love I have for the community. The second thing I would share is that it's a book that I think and I hope can be enjoyed by both folks who are Jewish and those who aren't. I think the idea of getting caught between worlds is something we can all relate to. And last, it's important to me that it's a joyful book. It's so important that we have so many of the books you all are putting out into the world about discrimination and hate. And this book isn't one of them. And I'm so delighted for yours and so delighted for the joy that's in mine. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Awesome. I personally am very psyched to read it as someone who has done a fair amount of code switching, and sometimes I'm talking like this and sometimes I'm not so much, but thrilled to have you here tonight and can't wait to read this one and share it with students. Thanks again. We're going to hear next from Leslie Kimmelman, and she will be followed by Melissa Stoller. Leslie Kimmelman is the author of more than 50 picture books and early readers, both fiction and nonfiction, a number of which were Sydney Taylor Notable and honor books. She was, until recently, a longtime children's book editor, including 25 years at Sesame Workshop, where she developed the character of Julia for the Autism Initiative. She lives just outside of New York City. Leslie, I got to tell you, before we jump in, I'm not going to steal from your 3 minutes, but I just have to say that I put up 8 nights on display in my library so that I could do a night display, because my kids have been night obsessed lately, and there have been a number of secular night books this year. And I put up this whole display of nights, right? And 8 nights, what your book was the first one to go off the display. So I was just really, I had to share that with you before I turn the mic over. And I promise that will not come off your 3 minutes. That's my 3 minutes. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Sylvie, and thank you, Heidi. Funny you should mention that. I actually have chain mail that I use when I do the 8 nights presentation. So too bad, Heidi, I could have lent it to you for your display. All right, so thank you, everyone. Like everyone else, I'm really happy to be here, especially in such good company. And I am sharing a new book. It was published this fall. If you're anything like me, you're probably thinking that we could use a lot more mensches in the world about now. And there are probably days when you think mensches are in short supply. And that's what first gave me the idea for this book, How to Be a Mensch by A Monster, as told to me, Leslie Kimmelman. Well, that and the fact that it's really fun to say the word mensch and menschy and menschiness over and over again. I'm sure all of you know that the Yiddish word mensch means a person of kindness, compassion, and honor. You probably also know that the word originally comes from the German for human being. But being a mensch isn't about what you look like or even what species you belong to. It's about how you act, and anyone can act like a mensch, even a monster. Of course, mensches may have different and unusual ways of showing their menshiness, like giving a beloved teacher an apple with worms performing all around it, or baking a challah the size of Manhattan. Still, a mensch is a mensch, and this town of monsters, so brilliantly and adorably illustrated by Sachiko Yoshikawa, throw themselves into menschdom with all their monster hearts and souls. It's clear that the best way to populate the world with mensches is to grow them ourselves. My book offers some easy ideas to young children, both Jewish and not, because clearly menshiness transcends religion. And here we are. This mensch is helping someone locate a missing head, and this mensch is helping someone repair their head, and the very all-important reaching a book from the top shelf mensch. Even young children quickly learn that it feels as good to be the giver of a kind act as it feels to be the recipient of one. And small acts of kindness are in everyone's reach, no matter your age or your species. I like writing funny books. I think kids need funny books. I think they're really important. So I hope I've succeeded in giving kids some giggles. The result of living in a world without mensches, however, is anything but funny. So I hope you'll share this book with someone you love, with a mensch in training. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. And it sounds like just as the concept of mensch does not just apply to Jewish children, it seems like this is a book that's going to have a wide audience. So thank you for being a mensch. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this book with us.
Thanks.
We're going to, you bet. We're going to hear next from Melissa Stoller, and after that, Nancy Chernin, you're on deck. Melissa Stoller is the author of a chapter book series and picture books, including Sadie's Shabbat Stories, Planting Friendship, Peace, Salam, Shalom, and Building Bridges, Peace, Salam, Shalom, co-written with Callie Lavam and Shirin Rahman. Melissa is a Rate Your Story judge, a volunteer with SCBWI/Metro NY, a Book Michigan's member, and a past school and synagogue trustee. Melissa has worked as a lawyer, legal writing instructor, freelance writing editor, and early childhood educator. She lives in New York City with her family and enjoys theater, museums, and Central Park Walk. Melissa is represented by Jonathan Rosen at the Seymour Agency. You can find her at melissastoller.com. Melissa, thanks for joining us tonight. What will you be sharing? The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Sylvie. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy and honored to be here tonight. I'm sharing Building Bridges, Peace, Salam, Shalom, which is an interfaith friendship story. I was really delighted to collaborate with Callie Lovorn and Shireen Shamsi to write this picture book, which just released in November 2022 from Clear Fork Publishing. And illustrator Kate Talbot brought her signature incredible artwork to our dream team. So Building Bridges is about 3 girls from 3 different faith traditions who cultivate friendship, understanding, and connection by trying to save their favorite bridge into Peace Park. My 2 co-authors and I are from the same faith traditions as the girls in the story, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim. And you may remember me from last year when I spoke about the first book in the series, which is Planting Friendship, Peace, Salam, Shalom. In Building Bridges, Hannah, Molly, and Severa discover that the bridge to Peace Park is in danger. Drawing upon their cultural traditions, such as baking, crafting, and singing, and using STEM principles like brainstorming and building, the girls take action to help solve the problem and build bridges to connect their families, school, and community. And I'll show you a couple of pictures. And we try to have a lot of good representation in the book. Here's the classroom, and one of my favorite spreads. This is where the bridge is in disrepair and needs to be fixed. And this is towards the end, when the girls' ingenuity saves the day. Illustrator Kate Talbot's vibrant artwork perfectly complements the lyrical text, We all researched about the three faiths, and Kate includes details from each of the characters' homes, including a menorah, dreidel, Hanukkah gelt, Shabbat candlesticks, and Kiddush cup, and also a synagogue, church, and mosque. Readers will enjoy searching for these objects, and we also offer back matter that highlights connection questions to provide further enrichment to the reading experience. Building Bridges will hopefully encourage families to have conversations about themes including friendship, community, tikkun olam, tzedakah, and making the world a better place. We were inspired to write this book to celebrate differences as well as similarities, and to hopefully bring more peace to the world, which we definitely need more of right now. I'm really happy to participate in a project that highlights Jewish customs, rituals, and values, among others, for Jewish and non-Jewish readers to enjoy. I hope that readers connect with the idea that we should all be proud of our unique heritages, and at the same time, like the three girls in the story, we must appreciate the beauty in other people's cultures as well, and we should always strive to build bridges of connection among our communities. Please visit my website at melissastoller.com, which includes book trailers, curriculum guides, coloring pages, and information about author visits, which I really love to do for all my books. Thank you so much to the Association of Jewish Libraries, to Heidi and Sylvie and Kate, and to everyone here tonight. Peace, salam, shalom.
Well, peace, salam, shalom. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It looks really, really special and really important. We need more books that help us build bridges and show us that that work is possible. Thank you again for being here. We're going to turn now to Nancy Chernin, and she will be followed by Sarah Derer Littman. Nancy Chernin is the author of Dear Mr. Dickens, a National Jewish Book Award, Sidney Taylor Honor, and Junior Library Guild Selection. Sidney Taylor Notables, A Queen to the Rescue, and Irving Berlin, The Immigrant Boy Who Made America Sing, and many other award-winning books. Counting on Shabbat is her first board book. Nancy, congrats on conquering a new format. Board books are deceptively challenging to write. What can you tell us about yours?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Sylvie and Heidi and the Association for Jewish Libraries, and Kate. Thank you for this warm welcome. I am really excited about this book, which I have to say is probably the shortest book tonight. It clocks in at fewer than 50 words, and it is aimed at our toddlers. It's illustrated by Petronella Dostalova. It'll be published by Carban in 2023. So what is it about? It's about Shabbat. It's about counting. But what it is about most of all is kindness. It starts out with one table draped in white, two candles set to light. And what we see on the first page is just one elderly man all alone. And you see him preparing for Shabbat by himself. And this builds until we have 5 knocking at the door. And then you have this family, which you notice is a diverse family, and they're knocking at the door and they're bringing food. They're bringing food to make matzo ball soup and kugel, and then the cooking and the fun happens. And you are counting on each page. But what you're counting is the joy also increasing in this man who would otherwise have been alone if this family hadn't come. And it's going to end with 10 smiles. Shabbat is here. And if you want to know what the inspiration for this is, here's a picture of my mom. And my mom, was a teacher. Then she retired. And, she was always surrounded by people. But as it happens in life, you get to a certain age, and then sometimes people don't come around so much anymore. And now at this point in my mother's life, she has dementia, and it's hard to connect. But every time the great-grandchildren come by, you can just see how she lights up. And when they bring the special treats that she likes, like her favorite apple pie, or anything with raisins in it, and how happy she gets. And I was thinking to write a book that I hope will encourage children, the littlest ones among us, to see what an impact they could make in the lives of our elderly, in the lives of anybody who is alone. And it could be on Shabbat, it could be on any holiday, it could be on any day of the year. I'm hoping that counting on Shabbat shows us that we can count on kindness, that young kids and their families and teachers will know how big a difference they can make in the lives of others. I hope the book will be embraced and used by preschools as a bridge to connecting our youngest children with the oldest adults, and again, for adults who are alone for whatever reason and who yearn for company. I would like to also say about board books that they are small but mighty. I am currently in a small but mighty Jewish board book group that you'll be hearing more about in 2023. I know at least one of the members of my group, Vivian Kirkfield, the wonderful Vivian Kirkfield, is on this. Sarah Arowesti, Ann Kofsky, and Varda Livni. We all have Jewish board books. There aren't enough of them. These were the only Jewish board books creators I could find coming out in 2023. And I hope you'll think about board books, that how they can provide windows and mirrors for our youngest kids. We have been talking about issues, sad issues of anti-Semitism, of hate. And I think about how important it is to fight that with windows and mirrors. When Jewish children see themselves in a book like this, they feel pride. They see the beauty of Shabbat, of kindness. And for non-Jewish children, toddlers, it's to be as young as toddlers and to understand the concept of Shabbat and what it means, that it's not a strange thing, but a beautiful thing and a beautiful way of people coming together and being kind to each other and welcoming God in our lives. I just think that that can bring our communities together. I hope above all that counting on Shabbat serves as a reminder that little ones can make a big difference and that kindness can make the world better for all.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's always a pleasure. We can always count on you for adding to our Jewish Kidlit community. Thank you so much. We're going to turn now to the first of two Sarahs. Sarah Dora Littman is the critically acclaimed author. Oh, so Sarah Sassoon, you're on deck. Critically acclaimed author of 19 middle grade and YA novels, including the 2006 Sidney Taylor Award winner, Confessions of a Closet Catholic, and the 2011 honor winner, Life After. Her latest YA novel, Some Kind of Hate, explores how a teen boy is radicalized to white nationalism online and the impact on his Jewish friend. Sarah, this is such an important and unfortunately really timely story. What can you share with us about it?
Well, thank you. And thanks to AJL for having me. Like Joanne, as I started researching and writing this book, I really hoped by the time it came out, it would be obsolete, but unfortunately it's just becoming more and more timely. So Some Kind of Hate, is the most difficult book I've researched and written to date. My books are usually inspired by a question, and the one that prompted Some Kind of Hate was wanting to know why there's been such a dramatic increase in anti-Semitic and other hate rhetoric. As Jews, we know that that rhetoric has consequences, and we've already seen it lead to deadly hate crimes in places like Pittsburgh, Poway, Buffalo, and in Colorado Springs. The research included spending time in some very dark places of the internet and really facing my fears by interviewing former extremists. But it was necessary for me to do that to understand how and why a teenage boy would start to believe deeply hateful ideas. Last week's ADL report on hate and harassment in online gaming shows why it's so important for us. Oh my God, of course my dog starts barking now. Excuse me 1 minute. Oh, always it without fail. Where was I? Okay, yes, the ADL report on hate and harassment, showed us how important it is to understand why that's happening, and also it's important for us to educate young people who are spending so much time online in what we want them to be able to recognize anti-Semitic and racist dog whistles. The novel's told in 2 points of view. First of all, there's Declan, who's a star freshman pitcher, and the other point of view is his Jewish friend and baseball teammate, Jake. When Declan's baseball future becomes uncertain after an accident, the loss of his baseball identity feels catastrophic, and so he's looking for something to replace it. He finds that after someone drops a link in a gaming chat for a private server with a game about the Crusades. There he finds people who seem to understand his pain and frustration, but who are really trying to recruit him to white nationalism. Having grown up in this town with a small Jewish population, Jake, the Jewish character, is used to people making stupid comments. And one of the reasons he's very involved with his synagogue youth group is because at least there his Jewish friends get it. He's also enjoying getting to know Ariel, who's the cute Jewish girl who just moved to town. Through Jake's perspective, we see how Declan's journey into extremism affects their longtime friendship and also the wider effect it has on the Jewish community. The story, unfortunately, is set against the rise in white nationalism that we're seeing all around us. And it explores the destructiveness of hate. And this is what was really important to me about writing it. It also examines Jewish concepts of forgiveness, about the power of love and the hope of redemption. And I have to tell you that writing it really changed me. I've got a detailed educator guide that you can find and other resources and discussion questions and activities available at my website, sarahdaralittman.com. And I thank you, AJL, again for hosting this, and all of you for listening. And I also agree that we need Jewish joy, and I am determined to write a funny book next. Thank you.
Thank you. It really sounds like such an important book, and one that must have been really, really challenging to write. Even just hearing you talk about that, it was like, I think your dog came in to bark just to kind of break some of the tension. So thank you to your dog for that. And thank you for being here tonight. We're going to turn next to Sarah Sassoon, followed by Allison and Wayne Marks, who will close out tonight's presentation. Sarah is a writer and poet of Iraqi Jewish descent. Her work has appeared in the Michigan Quarterly Review, Ruminate, Lilith, and elsewhere. She is the recipient of the Andrea Mariah Poetry Prize, and she's been twice shortlisted for the Anna Davidson Rosenberg Poetry Award and received honorable mentions in the Reuben Rose and the Roadrunner poetry competitions. Her micro chapbook, This Is Why We Don't Look Back, was recently awarded first place in Harbor Review's Jewish Women's Poetry Prize. Sarah is also the author of the children's picture book, Shoham Spangle. Sarah, what would you like to share with us tonight?
So I will be sharing Shoham Spangle. Thank you, Heidi, Sylvie, and Kate for this very special opportunity to share Shoham Spangle. Here it is. It's beautifully illustrated by Noah Kellner. And it's about a young girl, Shoham, who lives in Baghdad. And it's inspired by this bangle here, my own bangle that my Iraqi Jewish grandmother gave me. And I sat down to write about this bangle, and I came up with the story of my family and Shoham, who's named after my aunt, and 120,000 Iraqi Jews who had to leave Iraq for the very reasons that so many people have spoken tonight, because of anti-Semitism. They left in 1950-51 in a very big special rescue called Operation Ezra Nehemiah to Israel. But this is a bitter and sweet story. And I describe Shoham's life in Baghdad, where she loves her bangle, and with her grandmother, Nana Aziza. Her bangle jingles and jangles as she cuts cookies, picks figs, and learns how to swap it wrist to wrist to remember things. And just over here, you have a beautiful story spread by Noah Kellner, where you see Shoham, I hope you can see, with her grandmother, Nana Aziza, on the roof in Baghdad. That's the way they used to sleep in the summer. It was a very different life there. But they have to leave Iraq, like the Israelites left Egypt, and travel to Israel, but they don't go by foot across a desert. They fly in an airplane, and they're not allowed to take valuables. They're only allowed one suitcase. But as Shoham says, and as it's repeated in the story, at least we have each other. Knowing that what is important at the end of the day is not what you own, but being with your family and community. Luckily, with optimism and resilience, Shalom's grandmother hides Shalom's bangle in pita bread so that Shalom has her bangle in Israel, so she can keep cutting cookies, remember new Hebrew words, and most of all, to remind her of where she comes from. I love speaking about Shalom's bangle because it's a special opportunity for me to introduce children and adults to the very different world I grew up with, the rich culture of Judeo-Arabic, Babylonian Talmudic customs, history, and of course the food such as baba tamar, date cookies. My Iraqi Jewish roots and Shalom's go back 2,600 years to the Judean exile to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. And I want to remember this because today there are only 3 Jews in Iraq. I love that children are embracing Shalom's bangle as a book about special objects and family heirlooms. Encourage them to ask where their grandparents come from. The younger kids also love the buses, the planes and the trucks, the pita bread and picking fruit in the book. And they also relate to the very special relationship between Shoham and Nana Aziza. So this is a layered book that's more than just about a little girl leaving her country. It's about how important relationships are in a child's world, no matter what happens to them. And I think that's my main message and the message I grew up with in my immigrant family, that it's being together that counts. And what we take with us is our values, our history, our culture, and our joy. And I come from a very joyous family, even though they went through so much. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share this story of Shalom's bangle.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us. It really was such a pleasure to have you, and it's such a beautiful story. And I love how you've taken something so personal and made it so universal and such a beautiful story of sharing together. So thank you again. We're going to turn now to Allison Marks and Wayne Marks, the Marks. We're going to end this wonderful evening together for us. Last, but of course not least, we're so happy to have you here to talk about Tizzy the Dizzy Dreidel. Allison and Wayne Marks met in Canterbury Tales class in the University of Cincinnati, where they both earned degrees in English literature. Today, they spin stories of their own from their 100-year-old home in Akron, Ohio. They are the authors of several picture books and middle grade novels, including the Bank Street Award winner, The Art Lesson, a Shavuot story, and the Sidney Taylor Award notable book, Benny Feldman's All-Star Klezmer Band. Welcome, Allison and Mark. So glad you could join us tonight. What would you like to share with us about Tizzy the Dizzy Dreidel?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. And we are so glad and happy to share. Tizzy, there she is, spinning away.
It's the book is published by Carpen, and it's illustrated by Francesca Azzarelli. And you know, when we started writing the book, we wondered, how do you animate a dreidel? What type of illustration is going to make this happen? Because the dreidel does lots of crazy things. It skates on a frying pan, it dances up the stairs, it tangles with the music box. And we're so fortunate to have Francesca as an illustrator, because she did a wonderful job giving movement to our words. It was a real wonderful experience working with Joni Sussman on this as well. Would you like to tell a little bit about the book, Allison?
Well, the book is about a dreidel that is dizzy when she tries to spin, and it takes a little girl named Sarah who plucks her off the floor and gives her all the hope that she will be able to work with all the other dreidels and spin on the first night of Hanukkah. And Tizzy is so excited to be picked out that she not only spins for an hour, she ends up spinning the whole first day, the second day, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth days of Hanukkah. And all the other dreidels finally say, okay, you win, you win, you win. So it's a book about inclusion. It's a book about perseverance.
Yes, so we're hoping that the book, because Tizzy is usually bypassed for the annual game of who can spin the longest. So we hope that it will generate discussions with families and teachers, parents about giving those who might have lesser skills, who might be looked over, giving them a chance to shine. And that's who we've dedicated the book to. The book is dedicated to all the dizzy dreidels waiting for their chance to shine. We really love the book. We can't read it ourselves without getting a little verklempt at the end. And we think kids are going to like it an awful lot.
So Tizzy is the perfect, charming story to read to your children, your grandchildren, to anybody who will sit and listen.
Yeah, it's currently being used by the New York Public Library as an outreach book, along with Christmas books and solstice books that they take into the schools. So we're happy about that it's going to have a long spinning life.
There she goes again. Say goodbye, Tizzy.
All right, thank you for having us, everyone.
Yes, it's been a treat. Well, I wish that we could go on and on and on and on like Tizzy, but we have come just about to the end of our program, and what a wild ride it has been. Thank you to everyone who has presented. I'm going to turn it back over to Heidi for some closure.
All right, Sylvie, thank you. As always, an incredible job. You make it look so easy and it makes everything run so smoothly, even with that crazy interruption that we had. And again, kudos to Sean Boyle for dealing with that when I got all flustered and couldn't figure out what button to push. So thank you so much, Sean. I do want to just quickly put into the chat the website address for Storytime Solidarity, our co-sponsor, and I will also put the address for Kidlit in Color, our other co-sponsor. And thank you again to Kate Reynolds from Storytime Solidarity for being such an amazing ally and for sticking with us to the unexpectedly long event that we had tonight. So I am just going to upload one more time the handout, which is a PDF. And it lists all the books that were presented tonight. You can click on that and download it. You could also save the chat if you wanted to do that. And actually, I guess I will also invite the authors, if you want to really quickly go ahead and add your own website into the chat. Then if people save the chat, they will have all of those addresses. So thank you once again. We will obviously be editing the recording and then putting it on the HAL YouTube channel. So, and we will then let people know who were registered. So people who had to leave early or who couldn't end up making it will be able to see all of these wonderful presentations. So thank you again so much to everyone for coming. Give it a moment just if you want to get those links from the chat before you log off. And happy Hanukkah and happy Jewish Book Month, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Sylvie.
Thank you.
Thank you.